Greetings, brothers and sisters. Tonight is February 25th. Oh my gosh, the date is terrible. 2025. My name is Brother John Hargrove. I serve as president for Division 421 here in Atlanta. Tonight we will be continuing our officers training. We'll have session 17 and we'll be reading lesson 17 titled Communism. We'll have some questions from lesson 16 titled Propaganda. As always, we'll start with our pledge. Excuse me. If everyone would, please come off mute. Put your black fist in the air. Please stand. Put your black fist in the air. Repeat after me. I commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, black, and green.
Commit my body, mind, and spirit to the protection, defense, and security of the red, black, and green.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and the liberation of her scattered black children.
I dedicate my life to the redemption of Mother Africa and the redemption
and the liberation of her scattered black children.
I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism.
I accept for myself and my descendants the teachings of universal African nationalism.
And I promise that our children will be instilled with the purpose and knowledge of themselves as African people.
And I promise that our children will be instilled with purpose and knowledge of African people.
In order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail.
In order that the cause of our struggle will neither falter nor fail.
Until all black people are free and united.
Until all black people are free and united.
Through one God.
Through one God.
One aim.
And
one destiny.
One destiny.
Race first, family. You may be seated.
Race first.
Race first.
Any questions, concerns, comments, observations before we get started? Okay. First question, what does propaganda mean? And what is the desire of propaganda? First question, what does propaganda mean? Nobody? Dr. Huda?
Okay, thank you. Propaganda means to propagate or to make known extensively some particular phase of human intelligence. The desire is to convert or influence the people to the acceptance of the truth of that particular intelligence that is sought to be spread among them, directed at the public for the purpose of winning the support of that public, to convert people to their principles and get them to support them, even though there may be no merit at all.
Very good, Dr. Kuda. A brief question that someone had asked me before. Is propaganda positive or negative?
I would say it's both. I would say it's both. You can get positive propaganda and you can get negative propaganda.
Yes. Very well said. Yes, and that's the same thing I tried to communicate. This individual thought propaganda was inherently negative. I had to explain to them propaganda is just a tool, and it can be used for negative or it can be used for positive. But yes, very well said by Dr. Kuda. Propaganda means to propagate or make known extensively some particular phase of human intelligence desires to convert or influence people to an acceptance of truth of that particular intelligence that is sought to be spread among them. Any questions or comments so far on what propaganda is and the desire of propaganda? Okay. Foundational questions. Next, where can we find propaganda and what are institutions of propaganda? I call on people. Mr. Cecily, where can we find propaganda? Sister Cecily, you there?
Yes, I'm here. News,
News.
the radio.
Mhm. What are some propaganda institutions? Well, you said news and radio.
Mhm. Like the media, yeah.
Dr. Kuda's got some press, cinema, schoolrooms, pulpit, everywhere. Let's see. Second. There we go. Last paragraph on the first page of the lesson. I don't know what page this is. 126. Mr. Garvey says propaganda is all around you to make you buy a special brand of cigarettes, although no good, but advertised to be the best. To make you drink a certain brand of tea, telling you its wonderful qualities and its everlasting benefits. When there's absolutely nothing to it. Where are the organizations? Oh, press, cinema, pulpit, schoolroom are all propaganda agencies for one thing or another. And then we'll talk about more about what each of those institutions, the type of propaganda they provide. But again, that word institutions, as we discussed, I believe, what was that, lesson 12, the purpose of institutions. And now we're looking at what these institutions produce, and realizing that these institutions produce propaganda with certain particular aims. Next question, how was propaganda used on the Germans from 1914 to 1918? In Europe, it was propaganda against the Germans. How was that used? walk through the lesson. Talked about how they were initially considered scientific people, but later were classified as Huns. Before the War of 1914-1918, the Germans were known to be the most cultured scientific people in Europe. So that's positive propaganda. When the war started, other nations, in order to discredit Germans, hold them up to the world ridicule and contempt of civilization, released propaganda that classified the Germans as Huns and barbarians. This also reveals how organized intention can be carried out to the public for public acceptance without thought. So it's just showing you how in a short 4 year span, the Germans went from being classified as leaders in science to barbarians and Huns. So we have to be careful of propaganda and never be content with our image or perception that others give us. We must create our own propaganda for ourselves. Okay. So we remember the 1914 and 1918 as an example of what propaganda can do. What are some different types of propaganda? So we talked about the institutions. What are the different types of propaganda produced by these institutions?
Newspaper, movies.
Newspaper, movies. Dr. Kuda, see you had your hand up.
Advertisement.
Also religious.
Religious.
Lit and oral.
Oral, yes.
Political, demonstrative political, and literally. Literary.
Yes. So we talked about the institutions. Let me see my back over here. Yeah. Institutions included, and these are not all, but these are some institutions of propaganda, some examples in Mr. Garvey's time. Nowadays, a lot of social media could be considered propaganda agencies. Press, cinema, pulpit, schoolroom are all propaganda agencies for one thing or another. And these are the types. The pulpit carries religious propaganda. The classroom carries educational propaganda. Press carries out written propaganda. Platform carries on oral propaganda. Cinema carries out demonstrative propaganda or demonstrative propaganda. These methods have been devised by the white man to spread his ideas universally. That's why he is able, in a major sense, to control the minds of the people of the world. That's very important. I can't think of. So let me give me a second. This reminds me of something that we talked about in the beginning of the book. We're on 195. In the preface and foreword, we had a question: how has the white man built up his system of superiority? Does anybody remember that question or the answer to it? How
That
has,
if you
go ahead, Sister Diane.
essentially if you repeat the propaganda long enough, it gets accepted as a reality.
Absolutely. Where is that question? And that's what we're talking about now. That's what we're talking about now in propaganda. Yeah, how has the white man built up a system of superiority? Always repeat statements that will give your race status and advantage. So we were talking about propaganda as the tactic used by the white man to build up his system of superiority. And now we're in the lesson on propaganda where we're getting into the details of the different institutions and the different types of propaganda that these institutions produce. But we can all see how these institutions are um, uh, reinforcing what we know as white superiority or white supremacy. Okay, let me get back to where we were, 195. Different types of propaganda: religious, literary, or oral, demonstrative. What are two examples of biblical propaganda? Lady President, you got some background. So what are two examples of biblical propaganda? Two examples of biblical propaganda. Dr. Kuda?
The angels in the Holy Family are white.
Mm-hmm.
That's one form of propaganda. And the other one, the devil and the imps of hell are black.
Absolutely.
Wash me white as snow.
Absolutely. So talks a little bit about how color is used in the Bible and how these colors, white and black, are associated with either good or bad. But again, we must approach the Bible with a critical eye and not just a religious indoctrination perspective. Any questions so far? Okay. What should we do with propaganda that does not glorify our race?
Turn it around in our favor
Turn it around in our favor.
to glorify us.
Dr. Kuda?
Like reverse it.
Yes, that is a strategy, and I would agree, but I think Mr. Garvey had a different answer in this lesson.
According to Honorable Garvey, he said treat it like trash.
Yes,
Just trash it.
treat is like trash.
Anything that says negative things about our race, trash it.
Yes, yes. Let me pull that up briefly. And this is actually some good information here in regards to white man's superiority. White man is a great propagandist. He has fully realized the value of propaganda. Therefore, you must organize your propaganda to undo the propaganda of other people. Propaganda affects your interests. Then talked about the Bible. Never forget you're surrounded by a world of propaganda. Adam and Eve painted the devil, imps of hell black. Tear from your walls all pictures that glorify other races, tear them up and burn every bit of propaganda that does not carry your idea of things, treat them as trash. So yes, in instances where we can flip it, we flip it, but there will be some instances that just pretty much glorify others, and we'll have to treat that as trash.
I think on the top, the part you read, President John, is what Lady President Diane mentioned. Could you just scroll up a little bit?
Yes. This one, the artist also a propagandist?
No, there was another one. It's
This is where I started. White man
yeah.
propagandist.
Undo this one. Organize your propaganda to undo the propaganda of other people. That one. I think Lady President mentioned that.
Yes, that is correct. Both answers would suffice.
Thank you.
Okay. Why should we keep our homes free and clear of objects that glorify other races?
We have to set the proper example for our children so they don't grow up to glorify other races as well.
Absolutely, Lady President. As Mr. Garvey says on page 128, our children will grow up to adore and glorify these other races. So we must start with the propaganda in our own homes with our own families. Any questions or comments so far?
I just want to say this one is a big challenge, in these days that we are in now. It's a real big one. Our children are so modernized, westernized, and they they're so lost. And it's so hard to undo all this propaganda that's already been fed, that they've been fed, you know like even advertising all these products, I see even with my 17-year-old, you know, uh, the products that the way things are advertised, whether it's on TikTok or where, and their minds are blown away. And it's a difficult thing. I don't know how we're going to manage to really turn this vicious cycle back to normality, but it's doable. Thank you.
Yes, great point, Dr. Kuda. And that is that's a challenge that we have when we come into this information. I would argue what Mr. Garvey is encouraging and our vision is the creation of this new society. So this applies heavily to new families. It's your first child, second child, and it's in America. I know that there was a time when Black families had a lot of respect and pride for um, some Caucasians, such as John F. Kennedy. So they would have a picture of John F. Kennedy up in their homes. And what Mr. Garvey is saying is, um, at the very least, don't do that. But on the positive side, we should be putting up pictures of Marcus Garvey, Elijah Muhammad, Denmark Vesey, Nat Turner, these great Africans. So we have to, build that from childhood is what we are promoting. Okay. Next question. We got two more slides. Where does all propaganda come from? Where does all propaganda come from? We know what propaganda is. We know the different types. We know different institutions. But Mr. Garvey summarized it and says where all propaganda comes from. Dr. Kuda.
The the arranged desire of individuals and not from a race as a whole. For instance, oh no, let me not go there. Like for instance, right now, Elon Musk, he's got his own propaganda. He's an individual and he's pushing his propaganda forward. It is the thinkers and leaders who originate propaganda.
Absolutely. Where is that at in the book? What page is that? I'm having
Page 129.
129. Watch newspaper, be vigilant, all prop. Okay, yeah, here we go. So read paragraph for context. Watch the newspaper, magazine, journals daily for propaganda against your race or your institutions, particularly against the UNIA. Rush into print immediately a defense of your race, institutions, and organizations from any attack. Never allow any insult propagated to go unanswered by you. That's also a very important portion of this lesson on propaganda, is to defend against propaganda. Be ever vigilant to down anything by way of propaganda that dishonors or discredits you. Don't help the other fellow to carry on propaganda against yourself or your race. Okay. All propaganda comes from the arranged desire of individuals and not from a race as a whole. It is the thinkers and leaders who originate propaganda. By insisting on its wide distribution, they get other people to think as they like. And that's a very important point. Again, our issues and concerns and struggles that we have with other races and cultures and people, it's not a fault of the majority. Even as Mr. Garvey said, well, I'm not going to say it's not the majority, because Mr. Garvey said our biggest enemy is the uneducated white that doesn't know any better as to what they are doing. And this propaganda point speaks to that as well. There's a small group of individuals within a society or culture or race that produces these things and that gets the masses to buy in to these concepts.
Pick up these views.
A good example, Donald Trump, and his philosophies. It's not about, well, I mean, it is about the individual, but at the end of the day, that individual and that idea is spread to millions of other people. And that's the effect of propaganda.
Can I just also share an observation on this very point you read out here? Never allow an insult propagated to go unanswered by you. For instance, what that Marjorie lady said to Crockett about her eyelashes. And when Crockett gave it back to her, she gave it to her in such a highly professional manner, which she didn't even name her, but it hit back home that it was meant for her.
Yes.
So I just adore the Crockett representative from Texas, from Dallas, Texas. She is a great example of, how we are supposed to be, speaking up. Sometimes not only for ourselves, but for all human beings. And like when Dr. Zafia asked me that question, in my mind, we had just watched, thank you, President John, because we had just watched Dr. Tony Martin talking about nations. And, and I'd made notes, but I couldn't hear him clearly. The video wasn't so well audible. So, but as I was making the notes, some parts my words were not correct. And I was trying to also take my responses from there, but I also remember that we are all humans. And I know that the UNIA, our mission is a God-given mission.
Mm-hmm.
Our mission is not just self-centeredness. Yes, we want to be self-reliant because we've been left behind
Yes.
all these years. So it's about time we feel we must do for ourselves. But in doing that, we are not oppressing other races.
Mhm.
We are not closing doors on other races. Where we can help, we will help. But we come first.
Absolutely.
We have realized that we need to put ourselves first because we've always been put last.
Yep. Yep. That's all. It's that simple. We've spent so many years with concerns for others and doing for others. We just want to take some time and do for ourselves. That's really all, as simple as it is. Okay. All right, let's proceed. Get through these questions. Range desires and not from the race as a whole. It's the thinkers and leaders who originate propaganda, but not the masses of ignorant people. Why shouldn't we follow the propaganda of others? Very straightforward, but just want to be clear. Why shouldn't we follow the propaganda of others? Anybody know this? Sister Seth
I would say it dictates our response.
dictates our response.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, in responding to their propaganda, their whole their whole their whole thing is to get us to respond in some type of way, is to get people to respond in some type of way. So in responding to it, they're advertently dictating our response to something.
Yes, it's basically giving up our own self-reliance. And that's what we are striving to do, is do for ourselves. So for us to get into a position to do for ourselves, and the first thing that we do is follow the propaganda of others, we've just surrendered everything that we've worked for. So we can't follow the propaganda of others. Mr. Garvey had the example of Pied Piper leading the rats out into the ocean, and he also talked about may lead you to a circus tent and take away your pocketbook, but it's just generally against the principles of self-reliance. Okay.
It distracts us also and help us to buy into their brainwashing.
Yes, yes. Yeah. It basically establishes our priorities for us instead of us establishing them for ourselves. They're telling us, hey, this is important. Look at this, follow this, listen to this, do this.
Like one of the biggest propaganda is that black people are a minority. And then they even went further and break minority to be, white women with business. So a lot of times when they say minority businesses, it doesn't even include black people.
Yeah, true.
But we're by no means a minority when you look at, black people in this country and in the diaspora. We're not the minority.
Yes,
They
globally.
are.
Yes. Yeah, globally, we are definitely not a minority. Next question. What is propaganda organized by others always planned for? What is propaganda organized by others always planned for?
It's planned for putting them in a better light.
Putting them in a better light. Dr. Kuda?
It's also planned to take advantage of you.
Yes. Does he say subjugate yourself in this part? No. Okay, yes, it's planned to take advantage of you was the part that was in the text. Propaganda organized by someone else is always calculated to take advantage of you. Don't help them to do so. So we must be inquisitive in regards to propaganda. Always ask, what is this about? So it's a good example of we were talking about this with the boycott that's I think it's coming up. I hope I hadn't missed it. But I ain't spent no money anyway, so it don't matter. But the boycott, who sent it out? What's the name of that? Will it benefit or hurt the race? Who's yeah. We should always ask these questions. Is someone trying to get an advantage? Is it honest? Is it true? Um, so we must be inquisitive in regards to all propaganda. Let's see. If you ask these questions of all propaganda that comes up before you swallow it, you'll be able to take care of yourself. So we can't just take something and run with it and assume, our best intentions that we have in regards to the idea or the event. Hey, they're having I saw this, just come across, hey, they're having a flyer for a shoe giveaway, somewhere. But we must know, what are the intentions, who created it, who's benefiting from it, who's it targeting. We must know all of these things before we just jump on board and begin to promote that. Any questions so far? Calculate to take advantage of you. I thought it was subjugate. Next question. What color should we wear when we are mourning, or when we are sad or grieving, and why?
White,
Why is that?
because it's the opposite of what we are taught by others to wear.
Yeah, so current propaganda says wear white when you're happy, weddings and things like that, and in times of joy, and then wear black in times of mourning, funerals, death, so forth. So Mr. Garvey says, he just gives a brief example to counter that and wear white in times of mourning so that black isn't associated with mourning. Very straightforward. Any questions or comments on that? Meet propaganda with propaganda. But that's the instance of flipping it for our benefit. What are customs based on?
Learned behaviors.
Learned behaviors. I think it's a little bit deeper.
Traditions.
Yes, but where do those traditions come from?
Things that are passed down from generation to generation.
Yes, yes. Mr. Garvey says it a little bit different, but I understand what you're saying. Anyone else want to?
Indoctrination.
It is an indoctrination. Anyone else have any words? Thank you, Lady President. Very well stated in your own words as well. And that's how, again, we don't necessarily have to be verbatim or quote Mr. Garvey. The intent is to understand what Mr. Garvey is communicating and be able to express that in modern time. So Mr. Garvey says on page 131, therefore, customs are based upon acceptance of propaganda skillfully engineered. That's the critical point. We're talking about propaganda. We're talking about how propaganda comes from a small group of individuals. But then when you look at traditions and customs, parades, annual parades, Christmas, Easter, holidays, St. Patrick's or whatever it may be. Even our African holidays, Garvey Day, Emancipation Day, Juneteenth. These are ideas that come from a small group of individuals. They're presented to the society, and there's a process in which these ideas are become accepted by the society. And that is what we must do as well. We must create customs through engineering our own propaganda. And again, I think Garvey Day is our best example of doing that. But Ms. Garvey continues, have your own propaganda, hand it down through the ages. Write your own poetry, recite it. So when we do our pledge, our rituals, these are customs that are, we're creating customs. Compose your own songs and write them, write your own interpretation of the scriptures and history, and teach them as far as the interpretation of others affects your race. But creating our own customs, anything that we are trying to do on a consistent basis, even our mass meetings, that's not something that we created, but that's a custom from the UNIA that we continue so that, our people have something, a standing observance, so every 2 weeks at least, our people should know second and fourth Sunday, they should be thinking mass meeting, coming together, UNIA government, discussing the problems and the solutions of our community. So, all right, I'm gonna stop there. Any questions or comments on customs being acceptance of propaganda skillfully engineered?
Yeah, well, I would, Brother Mortimer would say, yeah, there are great examples Mr. Garvey's given, and even like when Malcolm X, Malcolm Little at the time was a young man, and they asked him to stand and sing lead the national anthem.
Mhm.
He told them his anthem was the University of Ethiopian anthem, and that he didn't have to rely on their customs and any of those things to have some patriotic pride in his own community. So when we have our own, there's a certain pride we begin to take in um, not having to yield to their nursery rhymes and yield to their rituals, yield to their interpretations of things. I remember when I first started studying culture, and I had seen some frogs or something in ancient Kemet, and was asking the brother who was teaching the class, these folks actually worship frogs. He's like, well, do you think white folks worship the cougar because they got a cougar car, or they got some symbol or some emblem, here and there, the jaguar, are they worshiping the jaguar? These symbols represent things that they admire, and so same thing in Africa. These are the worship of frogs and animals. These were admirable symbols that represented certain characteristics that we admire. So anyway, I was like, oh, okay. And I said, what about the mask and the stuff that folks were wearing, and these different rituals, witch doctors. You're like, well, what is Halloween? You say, well, are they witch doctors? Just because we have certain practices that they don't understand, don't interpret them as to mean that we were somehow backwards and didn't know what we were doing, and their house somehow do the same thing, but theirs is more civilized. So now we got to reverse the curse and flip the script on these false propaganda inspired ways of thinking. And so examining the origin and the intention of some of these things, I think Madam President called it brainwashing. I always call it brain soiling, if anything. When we get the right interpretation, that's the brainwashing.
Yep.
It's the good washing.
Yep.
But anyway, yeah, definitely that's an important lesson he expounded upon.
Sure. Thank you, Brother Mortimer. Yes, and I think our anthem, that's a perfect example of the propaganda they have, but the propaganda that we must also be able to counter that with. So, yeah, we have our own. That's the intention. Next question. What happens to an error that is not corrected? And what does this mean for the UNIA? This goes back to something Dr. Kuda, you had kind of pointed that out. Dr. Kuda again.
If an error is not corrected, it eventually becomes accepted as truth. For the UNIA, this means that failing to challenge false narratives or misinformation can lead to widespread misunderstanding and manipulation of people's beliefs. But according to Garvey, an error not corrected ultimately becomes a fact.
Yes. Yep. Yes. Protection from misrepresentation. So there will be outright slanders, things that are just wrong about the UNIA. But a lot of what I've seen is just misinformation. You may be off or misinterpreting or taking some information out of context. So last paragraph Mr. Garvey had before he gets into the war section challenged the thought of any book or other literature that dishonors or discredits you in any particular way and give it the widest publicity so as to undo the harm intended. Remember always that an error not corrected ultimately becomes a fact. Never allow false statements or allegations against your race to become current and pass into history as if they were facts. So it's also goes into the legal. I've heard it in legal. Silence implies consent. So if someone says, I'm trying to think of something. Trying to think of something fair and not too.
Sorry, President John, you said silence implies
consent. So if someone were to say, I'm trying to think of a good,
like a default judgment. You mean like if someone were to file a complaint against something and you don't answer?
right? Yes, yes,
You had so many days before.
yes.
They'll rule in default that you obviously
lack of response. Yeah.
Right.
But I'm trying to think of something that's outside of the scale of someone accusing you and you having to defend yourself. At that sense, you're forced to. I mean, you're kind of forced to make a statement. But I can't think of an example right now. The UNIA.
Well, I guess politically, any kind of accusation can
Yeah.
be, silence is kind of complicity. If you don't, respond to someone, saying you did something or whatever.
If people were to start saying Division 421 is stealing money, and that was going around in the community, if we don't, I would say if we don't come out and have some type of response to that, for me, that would imply a level of guilt.
Okay, I get that.
We have an obligation to set the record straight. Set the record straight. I think that's the best I can.
I get now what you mean by silence might mean consent that yes, you consent that what is being said is true.
Yes, exactly. We're not fighting back. We're not putting out any propaganda to combat this misinformation. So, Brother Moore.
Okay, that's very powerful because also what is being said out there about us as Black people, we need to start to counter effect because we've been silent.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when they say, our race is lazy, or
Yes.
not hard workers, that's
Yes.
propaganda we have to fight back.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Brother Moyman, you had a comment?
Yeah, well, I was just gonna say that there's a popular saying too that history is nothing but a lie that has been agreed upon.
Mm-hmm.
And so, just like people have said Columbus sailed the ocean blue and found America, and nobody says nothing about it, then everybody assumes it to be true, and then it becomes historical fact. Everybody knows it because no one's ever said anything to oppose that he was the first person here and all that. So if we don't challenge, historic lies, they get accepted and become, people assume that they're true because no one, forces them to retract that misinformation. So, it's important that, Mr. Garvey, every time somebody had something smart to say, Mr. Garvey half time didn't have to respond because Ferris was going to respond from the Negro world, or Bruce was going to respond, or Harrison was going to respond, or one of the, top dogs ready to knock somebody's head off if they're going to lie on the UNIA. So, yeah, we need that kind of machine, propaganda machine ready to defend our position and interests and actions.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And perhaps, sorry, Lady President, you go ahead.
I'm sorry. I know I was just gonna say, Ivan van Sertima wrote a book called They Came Before Columbus
Mhm.
to dispel that propaganda
Yep.
about Columbus discovering America.
Yep. Yep. Yes. And that's what we must do. As again, this goes back to that question that we got in the beginning: how has the white man built up his system of superiority? And it's through what we can say now, unchallenged propaganda, where they're putting out into the world,
Yeah.
they are the best, they are the first, they are the
Yeah.
greatest, and there's
Yeah.
they're challenging that and saying, you know what? No, I think we're the best. Matter of fact, I know we're the
Yeah.
best and we're the greatest.
And I was going to also say, as Brother Mariama was sharing, that ours won't be history. Ours is fact.
Yes, man.
We're not talking history, the Columbuses. Ours, we're talking facts.
That's right.
Who invented this? By fact. Who invented that? By fact. We've got a lot of, Black inventions that somehow has just been covered up as if it's white inventions.
Absolutely.
So there's a lot that we as Black people have invented.
Stolen legacy.
Yep. George G.M. James, Total Legacy.
Yep.
But yes, an error not corrected ultimately becomes a fact. So we cannot allow that process to continue in our time. What happened before our time, we can't really do much about that. But now that we are here, the legacy that we will create and the legacy that our future generations will inherit will be the legacy that we write, the history that we write, the facts that we record.
We have to teach the, uh, as Dr. Kuda was saying, with inventions and things like that, we have to teach the children because in the schools they'll tell you, um, about the light bulb and stuff like that, but they won't credit the black man that made the filament, to make the light bulb possible. They'll just give you half the story. So it's very important that we teach about inventions and things that we do as well.
Lewis Latimer, I believe is the brother's name that
Yeah.
was, he wasn't able to receive credit for his patents. His patents were taken by Edison. But yes,
Right.
that's history that we must bring to our children because we know that, American school system is not going to do that. Again, it's about who's going to get the credit. Are they going to give credit to the white man Edison, or are they going to give credit to the black man Lewis Latimer? And we should know what the expectation is. Next question, and we're getting to the second half of the lesson. War. What is war, and what are the aims of war? What is war, and what are the aims of war?
To fatten the military industrial complex.
It's more basic than that. Even before we had military industrial complex.
To kill and steal.
Yes, but how does Mr. Garvey describe that behavior?
I would say
Barbaric
war.
European antics.
European antics, Dr. Kuda?
I would say war is driven by human conflict, often fueled by anger, power struggle, and selfish desires. The goal of war is usually for the stronger side to dominate and take resources from the weaker side,
Yes.
often through violence and destruction.
Yes.
However, according to Honorable Garvey, war is hellish passion of man, let loose in opposition of men. Like what's currently happening in the United States with Elon Musk standing with a saw in the White House. I don't know what he's sewing up.
Yeah.
It sums up the cruelty of men towards men. Billionaires right now, they don't care. That's according to Garvey. And Garvey had foreseen this already. It always aims at the stronger taking advantage of the weaker to gain that
And
which
that's
could
another
not.
propaganda that they're the stronger. It's another propaganda that we buy
Because they have the
into.
money. They're the billionaires. That's why they are strong. They have the money. Money is
Right.
power.
They stole from South Africa.
Well,
Amen. That's true. Yes, Elon Musk is the apartheid kid. I'm sorry. I went off track.
They also have the propaganda, which we were speaking about earlier. And because that's how they rule, they're a small minority of people, but they have been able to persuade the minds of men to accept them as what they are not, which is superior. So we have to take back our minds. That's all. Race first.
First, thank you, Dr. Kuda. Very well, read. And I'll just summarize that again. And we've got it here on the screen. War is the hellish passion of man let loose in opposition to man. So that is the definition of how Mr. Garvey describes war. It sums up the cruelty of man towards man, and what is its aim? It always aims at the stronger taking advantage of the weaker to gain that which could not have been acquired otherwise because of the failure to use human reason. War comes when men fail to adjust their differences with reasoning. So, what lesson have we failed at if we have to resort to war?
Diplomacy.
Diplomacy, absolutely, yes. So that's a correlation that we must understand when he talks about a failure to use human reason. That is, in essence, diplomacy. But when diplomacy fails, we resort to war. As Fred Hampton said, politics is war without bloodshed, and war is politics with bloodshed. So when the politics and diplomacy breaks down, there's no more negotiation. That's when you get invasions and so forth. Any questions on war and the aims of war?
That's the sham in the background.
Yeah, we have some background. Bob, I think we just talked about this. Why do men resort to war?
To feed their greed and their ego.
Feed their greed and their ego.
and to suppress the weak.
I don't even know what I've got for the answer here. I think it's due to diplomacy. Yeah. That's the diplomacy. War comes when men fail to adjust their differences with the reasoning. So men resort to war when we are unable to reason with one another.
Like what's currently happening in America.
What do you mean?
What is happening with the Republicans? What they are doing?
There's not war yet. Not yet in America. War is Russia and Ukraine. That's war.
But there's an economic war going on.
Hidden. It's a very hidden. It's a very silent thing happening.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
I just mentioned that it's kind of a what do you call a Cold War. Not necessarily with bullets and bombs yet,
Yeah.
but with sanctions and policies. So that's kind of what we've been engaging with other countries, but yeah, now internally we having to deal with folks who are trying to destroy the certain fabrics of the country. And it's funny. I was just talking to somebody who was a Trump supporter, a pro-black guy who was a Trump supporter, and asked him how he felt about Trump saying that he wanted to recruit all the racist Afrikaners in South Africa to come to the U.S. because he felt they were being oppressed because some of them having to give some land they stole back. And so he wanted to invite them to settle in the U.S. At the same time, he wanted to revoke the temporary protection status of the Haitians who came over here to avoid a hardship and war that was going on in their country. But he's not racist. I'm like, how do you put these two together and make them make any kind of sense whatsoever? And I'm glad that the racist South Afrikaners told them, "Oh hell no, we're not coming to your country. We'll prefer to stay in paradise in Africa than to come to some America." So, but anyway, it was just the silliness of these policies that targeting directly, a group of people within the country. That's the beginning stages of a civil war, or it's trying to provoke some kind of a war, or ethnic cleansing, or some other policies, that are just as destructive. So we definitely got to be aware of what's going on.
Yes, and to the extent of, as we said earlier, human relations breaking down, that is the precursor to war. That makes sense from a domestic standpoint. Obviously, we can see in politics there is no the word bipartisan rarely is spoken of these days. So the relationship has broken down, and what we are seeing could be considered a Cold War, as it's been described.
Let me just add, President John, it's very disturbing what Elon Musk. I watched a video where he was being interviewed about some AI of some sort, and he mentioned in that video that with all these things being able to be done by machines, there might not be need for some of the human beings.
Yes, that's another discussion, Dr. Kuda. That's another.
Might be getting rid of most of us human beings.
Well,
That's a silent war.
Mr.
Okay.
Garvey warned us, years ago. And he said we must be scientists par excellence. So,
Yes.
now it's 2025 and these things are happening. We have to catch up from an intelligence standpoint. We have to understand what these systems can do, what they're designed for, and how we counter these systems.
And just to add to that a son that I brought up, he has just been invited to the nuclear plant in Moscow to be a fellow, to be part of the research on nuclear. So I'm so proud. He sent me the email yesterday showing me the letter of invitation. So he'll be going to Moscow. So we're getting into the sciences. We are there.
Yes.
As Black people. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kuda. Okay. Last slide. Where did the first war start? going back to the history of war. And you should
In
also
Africa, in Africa, when they invaded Africa, that should have been the First World War, but they didn't describe it as such. First war was in Africa.
first war was
When when the Europeans stayed in the Berlin Conference and parceled up the continent and
um,
invaded Africa.
you don't think war goes back before the creation of anything known as Europe?
I think they're probably talking about Cain and Abel in the Bible, but I believe that we misinterpret World War One and Two to be the European war, but we overlook the first war that was really in Africa, where they, following the Berlin Conference, when King Leopold murdered, maimed, mutilated thousands of Congolese people and all the atrocities that was created across the continent. They didn't see that as a war, but it was. But I think the Garvey's talking about Cain and Abel.
Yes, yes. We should understand a correlation, or I've seen a correlation between this section on war and lesson uh, 11, man. Mr. Garvey talks about how man as an individual is wicked, and the potential and the history of man, and now war is kind of expounding that into a group of men. So now when you have multiple men that are wicked or unrighteous, that's when you get into what we consider modern wars. But the first war goes back to Cain and Abel, according to Mr. Garvey, when Cain slew his brother Abel. Um, and okay. If there are any questions so far before we proceed to the next one.
Sorry, could you elaborate what happened between Cain and Abel? I'm sorry. Just want to refresh my mind. I don't think I
Uh,
quite remember. Somehow the Bible, I'm very kind of what can I say, spiritual, but it's just like the history books. In school, I could never understand these history books because I never found or you know, um I never saw myself, my people in it. So same with the Bible, somehow I find it hard to understand the Bible. Not that I'm against it, but I find it hard. So yes, I might have heard of Cain and Abel, but to me right now the story don't ring a bell. What
They,
happened between Cain and
they were
Abel?
they were brothers, and Cain slew Abel because to God showed favor to Abel. Um, in a nutshell, is what I remember.
yeah,
But somebody could probably elaborate more on it.
yes. First and foremost, Dr. Kuda, understand that is a challenge that many of us have. However, Mr. Garvey does still encourage us to read the text, and he encourages us to read a chapter every day. The story of Cain and Abel comes from the book of Genesis. It happens early on in the Bible. Um, Cain was the first son of Adam and Eve. So in the story of Genesis, Adam is the first creation. Eve is created from Adam's rib, so they're the first man and woman. And then they have a son, Cain. And then they have another son, Abel. So they're technically what most people know as the first four people, although that can be argued based on interpretation of the Bible. But they're the first four main people of the Bible. There comes a chapter in the Bible where, and I just read this recently, Cain is providing a sacrifice or uh, yeah, some sort of gift to God. But Cain's gift is Cain was a laborer of the field. So he worked, he grew vegetables and fruits and things like that. Whereas Abel was he oversaw the flock, so the goats and the sheeps and things like that. So Cain brought his sacrifice to God of the vegetables and the fruit. Abel brought his sacrifice to the God of some form of livestock. I can't remember which one it was. God preferred Abel's
A lamb.
and that caused tension between Cain and Abel, and then Cain subsequently killed Abel, and that's what Mr. Garvey is relating to. That was the first murder, and Cain was exiled from that community. And in lesson 9, Mr. Garvey goes on to say that Cain is the progenitor of the white race. But that's the summary of the Cain and Abel story. So
Thank you so much, President John. I never knew, but just by listening to that, I don't think God would have done that. But anyway, that's why Gavi has told us to read the Bible.
yeah,
That's why Gavi tells us to read a chapter a day to make us wiser, to understand, where we stand, because that's also propaganda.
exactly.
Anyway, but we learn lessons from it. Because God is fair. God is fair with all of us. He's not gonna say because you brought vegetables and this one brought sheep and goats that you the better one. No, that's not how God operates. No, God is spiritual.
Understand. Just to summarize it, this is where it's talked about in the text, last paragraph. Oh, I just messed that all up. Here, yeah, that's it right there, right? Yeah. Last paragraph, page 131. Mr. Garvey says, always be prepared for the exhibition of the vilest passions of men in war. Man has always man has always warred against his fellow man. It started with Cain against Abel and has continued through the ages and shall ever be so as long as man remains an unreasonable creature. So again, making that correlation with the lesson man and looking at the the history of man, and our history is one of uh, violence, so to speak, or contention.
Thank you, President John, for explaining. Thank you so much.
Okay, next question, and we wrapping up. Which generation has shown that man intends to become wholly reasonable? And that could be associated with peaceful. Which generation throughout the history of man has shown that humanity intends to be a reasonable, peaceful uh, people? Top of the next page, 132. Okay. We got our books out. Answer is no generation. No generation has shown that man intends to become wholly reasonable. Therefore, in time of peace, prepare for war, so as not to be caught unprepared by your enemy, who will naturally be the stronger, if he is prepared while you are not prepared and using the implements of warfare. Um, so, again, as Mr. Garvey said, to be forewarned is to be forearmed. Um, War has been a constant in history since the time of Cain and Abel. And we should understand and expect that mentality and behavior to continue. So we must prepare ourselves for that, not necessarily to be the aggressors, but to defend our people. You must expect war from his. You must expect war from his disposition. All things are fair in war to win the advantage over your enemy. Any questions on which generation is shown that man intends to be wholly reasonable? Yes, absolutely, Dr. Kuda. Okay, so yeah, we shouldn't be surprised when men are wicked, when in groups wage war. This is a reality of history. War is the best time to take advantage of what? War is the best time to take advantage of what? Transgressors, absolutely. Let's see. Therefore, when there is war, use all the implements at your disposal to defeat your enemy. Do not discuss terms while you are warring. Discuss them after you are victorious. When war comes, all resources of intelligence and wealth, all utilities are placed at the service of those who conduct the war to make them victorious on behalf of those for whom they are warring. So your society will voluntarily contribute their resources so to make sure that you are successful for that society. Therefore, have in view the obtaining and controlling of all such resources, factors, and utilities that may be necessary as ammunitions of war. There may be righteous wars as well as unrighteous wars, depending entirely upon the civilization that makes the war or defends itself in war. It may be war to put down human abuse in favor of human virtue. The war makers have always justified war in some way or another. If you become engaged in war, always have justification for your engagement. So, justification for why you are warring. War is the best time to take advantage of your transgressors, whoever he may be. Whenever he is engaged in war and he promises you nothing, you will never get anything from him in time of peace. Therefore, during time of war, make your bargains before you help anybody else in war. If you are suffering from the abuses of others and there should be a threat of war against them for some other source, encourage it because it will be your chance to force a square deal. So if you've, let me try to do this diplomatically. If we have an issue with, if we got an issue with Georgia Republicans, we would encourage the disagreement between Georgia Republicans and Georgia Democrats. So that way, now the Georgia Republicans not only have to deal with us, but they also have to deal with the Democrats. So it's almost as if, if you don't work with us, we will, cause more issues for you. That wasn't the best explanation, but hopefully y'all understand what I'm trying to say or what Mr. Garvey's trying to say more specifically.
Yes, thank you. That helps. Thank you.
So war is the best time to take advantage of your transgressors. If we have issues, we're trying to get negotiations and deals and establish relationships. War is the best time to do that. If Mr. Garvey says if we don't get a square deal in a time of war, you'll never get a square deal in time of peace. So don't even waste your time. How do
I was
you,
going to mention
brother?
one.
Go ahead.
Yeah, one of Mr. Garvey's students of that first class, the Honorable President General James Robert Stewart Sr. was one who applied that lesson quite well, and he didn't necessarily get what he wanted, but he was showing up ready to sit at the bargaining table when it came time to World War II, and blacks were needed to go to war to fight. He issued many statements saying that, well, if you want us to go save Europe again, and Europe has control of Africa, we're gonna have to cut a deal.
Yes, sir.
We'll help get some independence and get your country back. But France gonna have to cut off one of those colonies to Africans abroad to be able to manage and regulate and do what we need to do,
Absolutely.
to liberate. So yeah, he was ready to cut a deal, square deal, quick, for his allegiance and support and risking his life to go to war. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I think he applied that principle well.
Yep. So yeah, coming to the negotiation table, war is the best time to make those proposals and demands. Thank you, Brother Moyama. Last two questions. How do we become stronger while people we are warring against, or while people are warring against themselves? How do we become stronger while people are warring against themselves? Dr. Kuda is on it. By using good judgment. I didn't even know the answer to this one. I knew it was something about being self-reliant, focusing on yourself. Brother James?
Okay. Okay. Well, I'm reading. It looks like keeping the enemies divided is the best way to remain strong when we're at war with others. It says divide your enemies as to gain your advantage. Always keep them divided so as to be able to gain the advantage. Your only hope to escaping the hate and prejudice of other people is to keep them severely occupied with other problems. If they have nothing else to attend to, they will concentrate on you and your problems will be aggravated. I think that's right, Brother John. Brother President.
Absolutely. That is there. Well, but I do think Dr. Kuda's, and I'm trying to remember it myself. Yeah, okay. The more other people war against themselves, the stronger you become if you exercise good judgment. 133. Both are, in a sense, correct. Keeping them divided basically just gives you more time, and basically it extends the war. Divide your enemies so as to gain advantage. Keep them divided so as to be able to gain the advantage. Your only hope of escaping the hate and prejudice of other people is to keep them severely occupied with other problems. That comes up later. Um, if they have nothing else to attend to, they will concentrate on you, and your problems will be aggravated. While others have gone to war, try to be at peace among yourselves to gather the spoils of war. Never talk openly to your enemies, but be prepared for war. If you talk it, they will become prepared, waiting for you. Keep other races divided and fighting each other as much as you can so as to take advantage for yourselves. If they have no other problems to occupy their time, they will turn on you, and they will turn to you and turn on you. Keep them occupied. Otherwise, more confused they are worrying over their troubles, the more time you will have to get out of your trouble. Where's the... I'm just trying to get that actual line. It's supposed to be on 133. I must have read it. I had to have read it. Okay, yeah. Okay, that was it. The more other people war against themselves, the stronger you become if you exercise good judgment. Um, uh, it's a little, I mean, it's not the most direct question, but it's just forcing us to the realization of focusing on ourselves, and not getting caught up and distracted with other people's problems. I think we talked about this again with the Ukraine situation. When this first kicked off, there was a video of a brother up north that was signing up to go fight for Ukraine. You know, a brother here in the United States, and that was a clear example of what not to do. While they are fighting, while they are warring, we should be focusing on ourselves and getting ourselves together. But when we get caught up in what they've got going on and even sign up to fight their wars, we're definitely not going to be able to address our own problems and concerns. So we must practice and exercise good judgment when our transgressors are warring amongst themselves. And as Mr. Garvey says, keep them divided because that gives us more time. All right, last question. That also gives us more time, and as you said previously, it gives us some negotiation advantage. What is our only hope of escaping hate and prejudice of other people? Last question. Only hope of escaping hate and prejudice of other people. Brother James.
Your only hope of escaping the hate and prejudice of other people is to keep them severely occupied with other problems.
Absolutely. I can't find that on the book. Any questions? But keep them occupied, keep them busy, not necessarily, we can't say fighting, but keep them occupied, keep them busy, and we focus on ourselves. Any questions on propaganda? No questions on propaganda. Okay. All right, great job, everyone. Do we have any volunteers for the reading for tonight? Lesson 17. Brother James.
Yeah, I'll read lesson 17. What am I reading? The whole chapter on communism?
Yeah, communism. Just read as much as you can. If you need to tap, need somebody else to tag in, let us know.
Okay. Communism is a white man's creation to solve his own political and economic problems. It suggests the enthrallment of the white working class over the capitalistic class of the race. It was conceived by white men who were in sympathy with the economic struggles of their own white masses. It was never conceived and originally intended for the economic or political emancipation of the blacks, but rather to raise the earning capacity of the lowest class of white workers. It was founded principally on the theory of Karl Marx, who knew very little about Negroes and who thought and wrote less about them. It is a dangerous theory of economic and political reformation because it seeks to put government in the hands of an ignorant white mass who have not been able to destroy their natural prejudices towards the Negroes and other non white people. While it may be a good thing for them, it will be a bad thing for the Negroes who will fall under the government of the most ignorant, prejudiced class of the white race. The ignorant white man is cruel and prejudiced because of his very ignorance. Therefore, you may see how dangerous it would be to place in the hands by the very strength of his numbers. All right, I'm sending this call to voicemail. A government dictated and controlled by him. While the capitalistic system is ruthless and bad, it nevertheless gives the Negro a chance for employment competitive with the working class of white men for the purpose of extracting profit from labor, irrespective of the color of labor. The Negro, not being an industrial employer, shares, therefore, the opportunity to labor in competition with the white worker only because the white capitalist is willing to use anybody who can contribute the most profit to his industries, regardless of color. The capitalistic white man is an enemy of communism for the preservation of his own interest, if nothing more. If the Negro is not his own industrial employer and loses the goodwill of white capitalist employers because he is a communist, he will find himself unemployed. That is just what the communist wants, so as not to have a black competitor. This will enable him to dictate his terms to the white employer and get him at the expense of the unemployed Negro, because he too is a communist. The idea of the communists inviting Negroes to join their ranks is to support their theory that Negroes are communists too, so that if a white employer has to decide between a black communist and a white communist by the appeal of race, the white communist will get the consideration and the advantage. Therefore, the scheme coming from the white communists is to make Negroes communists. It is a vile and wicked scheme. The communists have created their own party and organization of which they are the international leaders. They alone are executives, know the policy and designs of the Communist Party, which are kept from Negroes for the purpose of fooling them into a sense of false security. When it is considered that all the outrages in war, mob violence, and extreme punishment have been administered to the Negro by the lowest class of white agents, as soldiers in war, as sailors, and as the mob, the Negro should have no doubt that his greatest enemy is the common white man who does not have enough intelligence to know the injury that he is doing to a race, even if he is paid to do so by his master. All wars in Africa, in the colonies where the natives have been shot down and punished, were carried out by the common white man in the ranks. In the lynchings that have occurred in the southern section of the United States of America, the mob has always been made up of the lowest class of the white race. No governor, state official, or major aristocrat has ever been found in the mob or leading the mob. The mob has always been made up of the common ignorant people from whom communists are made up of and whom the party is intended to give political power and economic advantages. The threat to run Negroes out of Jamestown, Pennsylvania, and the cotton fields of Mississippi and other sections of the United States were threats that came from the common white people. They served notices which stated, "Nigger, don't let the sun go down on you in this town." It was the common white people of Cardiff, Wales, who in 1923 stopped the funeral procession of a dead Negro seaman, smashed the coffin, cut off his head, and made a football of it in the street as a protest of Negroes being employed as seamen in Cardiff, while white men wanted to work. In South Africa, East Africa, and Southwest Africa, it is the poor white colonists who practice the most wicked discrimination and persecute the natives to rob them of their rights. Everywhere is the poor colonist and poor white man who carries out the dirty work of the prejudice against Negroes. These are the class of white people for whom communism is intended. Consider the socialists, the communists, and the trade unionists of the white race are all agitating for higher wages and better living conditions. It is evident that these economic improvements must only come at the expense of greater exploitation of weaker people. The weaker peoples before were the Chinese, the East Indians, and the Negroes. The Chinese have organized national resistance. The Indians have also organized national resistance. Therefore, only the Negro, who is exposed to the most ruthless exploitation, is left to be exploited in the future. Surely the low-class working white man will stop at nothing to raise his stature, even as controller of government through communism, even though it crushes the Negro. Hence, the Negro must realize that he is being played for a sucker. What the Negro must do is to let the communists fight their own battles and stand back to watch the fight. The Negro must take advantage of the opportunities presented during the fight, but he must not join the fight as a communist because he will be helping to bear the brunt of the battle with no guarantee that his condition will be better, but objectively worse, because he will help to transfer government from the more intelligent and cultured in behavior to that of the ignorant, more prejudiced, and most cruel. The man who caught your forefathers in Africa was not the white capitalist, but the white sailor, who is the class of man from whom the communists are made. He is dangerous to the Negro's liberty as a common man, as an ignorant man. Never join him to destroy the intelligence that rules the civilization that has given you existence upon the present time up to the present time. Anytime you are asked to join the Communist Party by your communist associate or acquaintance, tell him in answer, when you get to Russia, but not before then. Read Statement on Communism and the Negro and the Philosophy and Opinions of Marcus Garvey.
Thank you, Brother James. Great job. And that completes our reading for lesson 17. I just looked at our curriculum. We are a lesson behind. we're supposed to do 2 lessons last week, but this one, yeah, it looks like this one is long, so this is not the one to catch up. We'll catch up. We'll catch up in a couple weeks, but next week we will do commercial and industrial transactions, and we'll have questions for what we just read on communism. Any comments, questions, or concerns as we move to close?
President John, can I say something?
Go ahead, brother.
In regards to propaganda, I read to Palmetto Elementary today. I read Teach Me About Garvey, and the topic of propaganda kind of came up. And one of the students, they're very bright. I just want to say to all on the call that our children are very, extremely intelligent, bright, and curious. And when we present our history and culture to them at these impressionable ages, they're very receptive and absorb it all. But one of the children asked, they said, I don't even know grown people that asked this question, but he said, what would it have been like for Martin Luther King had Marcus Garvey not been here? And I'd never been presented with that question, but I kind of basically touched on several things, but the thing that I highlighted was Marcus Garvey kind of retaught the black man and woman how to love themselves and appreciate being an African person. And when you are appreciative and love yourself and love on yourself, you are more receptive to organizing, which made Marcus Garvey so successful. And it made me think about that propaganda that Garvey used, which was actually positive propaganda. And if it wasn't for those approaches and tactics that were deployed by Mr. Garvey, I told the youngster that, Martin Luther King wouldn't have been able to have the footing that he had. So I just wanted to share that with everybody on the call tonight.
Absolutely. I'll pull up the quote that King had in regards to Garvey. I love that quote, and I love the fact that we are the Atlanta division, so we kind of get to share that quote as often as we can. Martin Luther King Jr. said, and this is, when you think about the impact and the effect, a lot of these brothers and sisters, I mean, it's scary to think about where we would be without the inspiration of Marcus Garvey. I can't even say that we would have the examples that we have, Malcolm X, of course. But at any rate, Martin Luther King said Marcus Garvey was, quote, the first man on a mass scale and level to give millions of Negroes a sense of dignity and destiny. He also called Marcus Garvey the first man of color in the history of the United States to lead and develop a mass movement. It's hard for me to think of where we would be as a people and the examples that we would have of what we consider leadership if it wasn't for Mr. Garvey. But thank you, Brother James. Great point. Please continue to work. And I did get your message, your email. I hadn't responded or anything, but I did get your email.
Okay, thank you, Brother President.
King, yeah, I don't think King was kind of reversing some of Marcus' stuff, though, of the Honorable Martin Luther King and Marcus Garvey. They're kind of opposite a little bit, because King started to, Garvey was about self-reliance and self-sufficiency and a nation of our own, like the Black Wall Streets. But King was talking about integration.
Yes.
And integration undid a lot of that stuff. It was just the wrong way to go. It set the race back.
Yeah, we can debate the strategy, and I could agree in regards to undoing a lot of the self-reliance that Mr. Garvey instilled. One thing that we can't take away from Martin Luther King from a Garvey aspect is organization. He would not have been able to be as successful as he was if he didn't get the support of the masses of the people. So he wasn't the best organizer. He wasn't a Marcus Garvey level organizer, but he did use the principles of organization in an attempt to get what he saw as the best benefit for Black people at that time.
Can I say something to Lady President?
Sure.
Diane? I agree with you. You're exactly 100% right, Lady President, Sister Diane. And that's all the more reason why I know that it's prevalent that we introduce Garvey to our children at these ages, because that youngster who asked me about that, that's coming from an education where Martin Luther King is kind of the litmus test for them. He's introduced to them as, the highest form of moral decency and organization, and they're void of that Garvey knowledge and the groundwork and the framework that Marcus Garvey laid before King, for King to even be able to do a quarter of what he did. So that's all the more reason why I took that opportunity to meet the youngster where he was and show him that, while King did, we could definitely say kind of undid some things or spoke to logic that's undoing to what Garvey did. But I tied it back and showed him how, if it wasn't for Garvey doing this and creating an example of organizing on such a mass scale, King and anybody after Garvey wouldn't have been able to do what they did. So, yeah, but I agree with you, Lady President.
Yes.
All right, brothers and sisters. 9:50. If there aren't any closing comments, we will close out. Brother Moyama, you want to close us out? You have anything in particular?
Yeah. Well, I was thinking about one thing, but yeah, I can close out with "Shine On Eternal Light." I guess. Or is that too long? I'm trying to hurry.
No, you good. You good. Take your time.
Do a slightly faster version of that. Shine on eternal light to greet our souls this day. Dispel the gloominess of night and drive our doubts away. Come love and give new birth to man's destructive mind. Spread where confusion reigns on earth, goodwill to all mankind. Our longing eyes prepare when war and strife shall cease, to view the morn soon to appear, the new era of peace. Shine on eternal light, thy penetrating ray shall turn the hour of darkest night into eternal day. And I like that one particularly because it's a uplifting, positive message. Whereas people talk about the dark continent and dark and murky things, we talking about the light and being a continent with a bright future. So I figured that was a good song and reversing some propaganda in our minds. So with that.
Ashe, thank you.
Yeah, I always love to hear the cadence and the melody, because I only read it as verbatim. But thank you for that, Brother Moyama.
Should I do the motto, or do you want somebody else to finish with the motto?
I'll close out with the motto and the slogan. If everyone would, please come off mute, put your black fists in the air, repeat after me. One God.
One God.
One God.
One aim.
One
aim.
One destiny.
One
destiny.
Africa for the Africans.
Africa.
The Africans.
Those at home.
Those at home.
And those abroad.
And those abroad.
Those abroad.
Race first, family.
Race first.
Race first.